Hi everyone, it's Denise from Dobby Books, and I am back from vacation slash spring break. So where did I go? I went back east. I have my youngest son who lives in PA. He lives in Northeast PA and he lives in the tri-state area. And he was turning 30. My youngest was turning 30. And he's the one that has the newest granddaughter. So I guess I'll let it slide. But we surprised him. He wasn't expecting me or my sister to be there or his cousin. So it was a nice surprise and it was great. I got to spend a few days with him. You know, one day we made, the traditional Irish meal. And the next day we had a really nice little barbecue outside. And it was colder there because he's in the Poconos area. It was colder there than it was in NYC. Um, and I did bring some layers, so I was okay. And now that we're back in California, it's like hot today. What a huge difference. I mean, it feels like beginning of summer hot today. I checked the thermostat downstairs before I came up here, and it said 76 degrees in the house. Forget outside, I don't know what it is. I've been trying to keep the shades drawn and what have you. Um, and my jeans felt way too warm. And I had my boots on. They look like sort of hiking boots. Way too hot. Way too hot. So what a difference. What a difference in weather. But I want to show you what I got at the Harry Potter store. We also went to the Strand bookstore, and we also went to another bookstore, and I have the bag here. Hold on a second. Okay, and we also went to another bookstore just before the Strand that I wanted to share with you. Okay, so what did we do? The first store that I went to is the one that was just before the Strand. It's called the Rizzoli, New York. It's been established in 1964. And you can see the address there. It's on Broadway, the same street as the Strand. And, you know, looking around, this is what happens when you go to a bookstore, right? Number one, you're going to have to take it home with you in the suitcase. And all I had was my carry-on. So I had to be careful. What can I get here that I probably won't find where I am? In general, there were a few things, but what I did find was something very unique that I don't think I could find anywhere else. And it was this journal notebook. I'm going to take it out of its wrapper. It was so pretty. A journal notebook. And this is actually embroidered. It's beautiful. Look at this. If I can get closer to you. But you can see that it's actually embroidered. This was very unique. So I ended up purchasing this from Rizzoli. I just love this design. So pretty. And one day I will write in it, just not right now. So I'm going to put it back in its little cover. And I'm sure after I write in it, it's going to go right back into its little cover because that's how I am about my books and stuff. And this is its little cover, its little plastic cover, and this is where it's going to stay. Now, the next thing that I got at the Rizzoli was, where did it go? Where did I get? Oh, no, that was it. No, there was a card. A very unique card that I thought, there it is. So pretty. This card looks like it's also embroidered, but it's not. It's in its cover, and I'm going to take it out so you can see it more closely. Maybe I could find this in Santa Barbara. I'm sure, but I wanted something special. And the name of the company is called Bug Art, designed by Jane Crowther, and it's called Cushion Kitty. And you could see the kitty was very busy. I thought that was just a very sweet picture. I love the colors. I love those warm yellows and reds. Those are colors that I'm really drawn to. So that's the card I got at the Rizzoli, the notebook and the card. Now, just a few more paces down the same street and at the corner was the Strand. And I've been to the Strand before. I have a video on that from a different year, probably 2 years ago I went there. And at the Strand, I got one thing. Yeah. You know what I got? Again, because I'm thinking, I've got to take this home. And my carry-on is a little full right now. You know, next time I think I'm going to put my carry-on inside a bigger suitcase, or I'm just going to bring a bigger suitcase and just check it in. So depending on which airline you take, you know, maybe it's $50, maybe it's $35, it depends. And I'm willing to pay that just to have a little more room. I was making notes to myself while I'm there. Next time, do this. Next time, don't do that, because I know I'm going to forget. But this bag I got at the Strand, I think on the back it says the Strand here, doesn't it? No, it doesn't. But you know those cheap little plastic bags you get when you go to maybe a mom and pop store, and it's just a general generic plastic bag you could take home with you. I got a cloth version of it at the Strand, and I just love this. I love it. But yeah, I'm telling you, it was terribly overpriced. I didn't pay attention at the time, which is incredibly stupid. Do you know how much this bag cost me at the Strand? $42.95. Holy cow, people. I mean, it's a nice bag. It has a silky feel to it. It has a level of sturdiness to it, I know. Let's see. Made in the USA. Okay, all right. I'll pay a little extra for made in the USA. But yeah, this is the only exciting thing that I got at the Strand, because I could have gotten a whole lot there. And the whole time I'm at the Strand, I'm thinking, oh, I'd love to get this. And because they've got, you know, secondhand books as well. And I saw several things that I wanted to take with me. And I remember thinking to myself, I wonder if I could go to the desk with my big old pile of books and say, can you ship these to me? If they would do that. But I didn't. I don't know. I will ask them. I'm very curious if they'll do that for a customer. That would be very convenient if they did. Now, my son, my 30-year-old son, is a little forgetful. And 30, it's still happening. And he said, Mom, and he comes out with this little bag and he goes, Merry Christmas. So I got my Christmas present from him a little late. And I got, get this, a Hermione pillow. How do they know I love Harry Potter? A Hermione pillow. And I had this with me on the plane, and it was wonderful. And I used it as sort of like a lap desk when I was reading on the plane. It was fabulous. So I have my little Hermione pillow. And look what else they got me. This is a Dobby sweater. So it's a Harry Potter item. A green sweater. And if you see here, it says Dobby is free. So I'm going to see if I can show this to you. If I can get this to be buttoned, it'll behave better, and you'll be able to see more clearly what it says. Let's see how quickly I can do the buttons here. These are 2 buttons. All right, one way down. Here we go. So you have this here. That's so cute. And on the other side, you have little Dobby. There's the collar. Dobby is free. And then you have on the sleeves more embroidery. Isn't that pretty? And over here, the embroidery. I think this is so sweet. This sweater is just the sweetest thing they could have gotten me. Another Harry Potter item. I just don't know how they know these things. They've seen my library. Okay, so that's my Christmas present for my son, was my sweater and my Hermione pillow. Oh, you know what else I got at the Strand? Because like I said, it was cold. And New York City was a little less cold, let's say, but 2 days. One day when we were in town with my son, the winds were spiked up a bit there, and you know, it feels colder. And not the day that we arrived in NYC, but the day we returned. I returned the day before we were going to fly back out on Saturday, because I wanted to spend the day in the city, and I was going to go to the Harry Potter store come hell or high water. So anyway, in the Strand books, I ended up getting a hat because I needed a longer hat for my head. It just, the one I had wasn't working. So this one says the Strand on it, and it's lined. It was lovely. It's nice and warm for my head. So I got my hat from the Strand, and I was so mad with myself because I had these great pair of gloves. They weren't thick, but they were warm, and I put them through the loop in my purse. I had like a shoulder purse. It's easier for me when I'm walking through the city and what have you. And I looped them through the little loop at the top to look at something, forgot about them. And by the time we were outside and I looked down, oh, let me put my gloves back on, they were gone. So they fell down somewhere. I don't know if it happened in the store or somewhere in the street, and I was just kicking myself for that. So anyways, let me show you now what books I ended up getting that arrived while I was gone. And the last one I'm going to save is a brand new one that arrived from the Folio Society, and I'll cover that some more. So you know how I was, let me get this here. You know how I was working on this collection, the main currents of Marxism. Part 2 is the Golden Age. Part 3, the breakdown. Well, Part 1 finally arrived, but unfortunately it's not the same edition as these. So this is Part 1, the Founders, but you see the cover's different, so it's not quite matching. So I'm holding on to this for now. I did notice that there are annotations in this book. This is one of the busiest pages, and I'm kind of disappointed because I did ask the seller, are there any annotations or highlights in the book? They said no. So maybe they were looking at the other book that they sent me, which is, now I have copies of book 2. There are no annotations in this book, and it's in very good condition because I really don't think anybody read it. But book 1, you're going to find predominantly, if a student purchases this, this is the one they're going to use the most because, of course, you want to find the origins of things and how this came about. My only consolation, I'm going to hold on to this for now. My only consolation is that it's all in pencil. I can erase pencil. And I'm also curious to see what this person wrote. So I'm going to kind of read it first and I'll erase it. And then when I'm able to find a book 1 with this cover, because you know me, it's all got to match and be sparkly, I'm going to buy book 1 with this cover. And it's going to be hard because book 1s are normally the ones that get marked up. And the only one that I saw on eBay with this cover was the 3 set, all 3 books. I don't want all 3. I just want book 1. So I'll just have to be patient. So I ended up getting these 2 books while I was gone, book 1 and book 2. This one it's going to be extra, and I'll probably take it over to my library because I'm sure someone's going to need this. I will hold on to book 1 until I can get its replacement. And then the other book that arrived while I was gone, I think, was this one, Meta History, The Historical Imagination in 19th-Century Europe by Hayden, a well-known name among historians, and another book and author that I learned about in my historiography class. And this is what we were talking about, meta history. And meta history simply being when you think about meta studies, I worked in healthcare for 20 years. So when we talked about meta studies, we knew that this was a study done on a collection of studies, a big collection of studies, and they wanted to pretty much see what was a pattern showing up or what have you in a meta study. Well, like in a history, a meta study let's see if my brain will explain it to you right. It's not just history going along one focus, but a multi-focused history. And if I'm not mistaken, maybe I can use the word a multi-layered history, meaning the same thing. So this is something that I know I will eventually be reading after graduation. Now, the book I ended up getting and it arrived just before we left on vacation, and so I knew I didn't want to open it until I could sit down again and talk with all of you, was a book I got from the Folio Society. And I only buy folio books of novels or whatever that I especially like, favorites. So look at the inside. I'm going to open this up. So it's going to be sort of unboxing. The inside of that, isn't that neat? I love saving these boxes because when I end up selling a book or sending it to somebody, I like to use these boxes. And I have my dispatch notice. I just love that. And this box was packed by Jurgita. Thank you, Jurgita. And let me show you this honeycomb paper wrapping. I think this is the coolest thing. This is all. I love how Folio Society is very environmentally conscious. They try not to use any plastics or anything like that. So that's the empty box. Isn't that the neatest thing? I wonder what it says in here. At Folio, our story is simple. We make beautiful books you will treasure forever because folio books are for keeps. That's nice. Okay, so now we're going to unwrap this. And now it's wrapped in this beautiful paper. Isn't that neat? So opaque, white, tissuey kind of paper. And I'm looking at the cover and I'm thinking, did I order this? Because it doesn't look familiar. So let's see what happens here. Yes, it's the right book. But this is the slip cover. Want to know what it is? The Book Thief. I remember when I read this book. I don't know if any of you have read it. I'm sure many of you have already. And just the story, I understood this is a story of a young girl during World War II and how food is not very abundant during that time with the rationing going on. There are a lot of shortages. Life is uncertain. Really, they have some bare minimums. It had this sort of gray mood to it. And you see the adventures of this young girl who loves books. So, number one, I could relate to her. And she meets someone whom I believe it's her grandfather or her uncle, hides in their basement. And it's a Jewish man. And it talks about her friendship and what this man has gone through during the war. And this girl also meets the wife of a German military man. And this woman, without saying anything, in her gestures and invitations, she opens the door to her home library and allows the girl to walk into it or just wander into it. And that's sort of that silent message that this woman understands that this little girl just loves books and wants to read, and this woman wants to give this girl that small pleasure when you think that life was just so gray. And it was just, you feel the joy that this girl is going through in this beautiful, wonderful, magical place. And it's a different world compared to what is outside, the sadness and the gloom and that uncertainty. And what really strikes you is, the narration through the story as you're following through. At a certain point in the story, you learn something very unique about the narrator too. It really was a story that was unforgettable for me when I read it, and I don't even know where the original book is that I purchased. It may have been left behind when I left the East Coast and came back to California, but I never forgot the story. And I want to see it. I just love that it has books on it. And look at the color. It's kind of like that greenish, not terribly bright, but look when she's looking through it, and sort of her face lights up. The book next to her is lit up, so they stand out from the very kind of like a, I don't want to say bland, but everything just sort of blending in. I want to find some illustrations for you. Here's one. This was a book burning, and she managed to steal a book from somewhere in the book burning. And another illustration. This is the library that the German woman allowed her to explore. You see the color in there? And that's what you get the feel of when you read the story, that this place, this one room, was full of life and energy compared to what she experienced at home. And this is the basement. And you'll understand what's happening here. See the difference in color? That different mood that she has in her life. And I believe that the person who was writing on the walls, and I forgot what he was writing, but I believe it was the Jewish man who was living in the basement, was writing and writing, and he wrote on the walls as well. I have to refresh my memory on this story. I just thought it was beautiful. And I think, is this the man? Let me look again. This is when she was nursing him to health. I think it was her. Yeah, I believe it was her. The man was very, very, very sick at one point, and she looked after him, and they established a very beautiful bond. You know, I guess she appreciated the company, and and he was moved that this young girl was helping him out, and loved reading and loved words, and it really was such a beautiful story. So yeah, this is my splurge, my Folio Society book of The Book Thief. You might want to know the author. Markus Zusak. Yeah, now the name comes back to me. Beautiful book. Now, I've shown you when I got on vacation, and I have shown you my little mini haul, and now I'm going to finish with what I managed to read during my spring break. I actually managed to finish a couple of books. The first one that I was working my way through that I wanted to finish because I had already started it while I was here was the BFG by Roald Dahl, and I did finish that in one sit. I guess I was on the plane. I finished it while I was on the plane. Fantastic. I didn't fall asleep. Yay. Which happens to me on a plane. I fall asleep. I've been able to work my way through that. I don't know how. And then this one by Erika L. Sánchez, I'm Not Your Perfect Mexican Daughter. And this is for my YA class, for a special group we're going to be in. There's the three of us reading this book. And it was very similar to the other book I read, which I'm not even going to remember right now. I'm trying to find it. Sorry, my nose itches. A similar story, except this girl was Latina. She didn't have a Mexican mother. She had, I think her mother was from the Dominican Republic. But there's a lot of similarity with Latin mothers. So some of the things that the protagonist talked about in this book were the difficulties she had with a mother who called the shots. Was just like, I see it as micromanaging. And it had a lot of triggers for me because when I think of my own upbringing with my own Mexican mother, who didn't give a flying rip what the American mothers did, how they raised their daughters, what they led their daughters, she didn't care. She was going to raise her daughters her way. And my mother stood out for that reason. I did not have this normal, quote unquote, American teenage girl experience. My mother didn't see a lot of good in the way American girls had their teenagerhood. So I guess you could say, compared to a lot of American girls, my sister and I were pretty, I don't know, sheltered or kept back from that sort of thing. In one way, in some ways it was good. In other ways, I kind of wish that I was able to move out of the house and move in with my girlfriends, and we could split the rent and, have a little independence. That would have been nice, but my mother did not believe that we should be moving out of the house until we got married. Boy, that caused a lot of fights between my sister and my mom. They just would butt heads over that. And my sister did eventually say, arrivederci, and she moved out and she got her apartment. She was much braver than me. For me, it was just easier not to cause any waves and to just, but that was always me. I was very bad at confronting. I was very bad about stating what I wanted, but I got better over the years, you know. So I could relate to a lot of things. And the other book I read, The Poet X, that was the other one. They were both teenagers that loved to read, that wrote poetry, that kept journals, that had mothers who ended up at some point in the story going through their journals and destroying pages that they felt were inappropriate. Just really crossing boundaries that, I guess your average parent, at least your parent today, most parents, let's say, would not do. They would respect their child's private space. Everyone needs some aspect of a private life. Keeping a journal so you can just, process your thoughts and your emotions is such an important thing. I did that. I loved books. I wasn't into poetry, but I loved books, and I used to journal. And my mother, as far as I can remember, never went into my journal to read it. None that I know of. But there were some things that I'm reading it, and I was starting to feel kind of depressed. It's like, oh man, I remember that. Oh my gosh, what drudgery. You can't wait till you turn 18 and you can leave. It sounds awful, but I think those of you out there who may have had the experience with a Mexican mother, and you understand how the son is treated differently than the daughters. That was what it was like in my house. And expectations are different for sons and daughters. And what my mother considered freedom was not what American mothers considered freedom. It was just very different. It was a good story. It went well. I think it flowed well. I think it was very relatable to a lot of young readers on this. I did enjoy it, and I'm glad I finished it before we had to come back from our spring break because I'm that much farther ahead than the rest of the people in my group. And the one that I ended up starting that I have not finished that I am finding fascinating, and this is the last one, is by Philip Pullman, Demon Voices on Stories and Storytelling, author of His Dark Materials. It is a collection of essays and talks that the author has given or posted on his website or for a professional journal. And what I like about this is that at the beginning, you have the table of contents, which lists the different essays and talks and journal articles in their order that you'll see them in the book. But when you go further, it gives you a second table of contents, if you will, and it goes by topic. And this is what really got me. I was able to put a little pencil mark next to those topics that would relate to what I was writing about for my capstone. And on the capstone, my focus is really on his view of religion and science. So those are the two topics and the collection of essays that I'm going to be focusing on, and they're giving me more insight into the mind of Philip Pullman. It's really, it's interesting as you do research and you start putting all those pieces together, that it really helps you to, it's a puzzle. And that's the excitement of doing research that I enjoy. It starts filling in those gaps, and the puzzle starts working its way from the outside towards the center, and you get your full picture. So I'm really hoping that my capstone turns out like that. And I have this book and I believe two more that I'll be reading. This one has most information. So these three books are what I read over my spring break. I finished 2, and I'm still working on this. I ended up getting 1, 2, 4 books shipped to me while I was on my vacation. And I got 1, 2, 3, 4 items when I went back east on vacation, and 2 of them were Harry Potter things. It's interesting. And I got a lovely notebook. So that is my week. I know I got tagged by some people while I was out. As soon as I'm able to, I promise you, I will catch up and respond to those tags. And thank you to each one of you for remembering me in that. And I will see you in a few days, everyone. Take care. Bye-bye.
Let's go. Putting a limit.